Back in 2008, I saw a video on YouTube of two guys doing a dance number, and Daft Punk's Around the World was dubbed over it. Just based on the look of the video, the footage was obviously from decades ago. So it was kind of clever combining it with modern electronic music. But one thing that bothered me was that the music was out of sync with the dancing. I figured I could probably sync them up, and after a couple hours I made this. Fast forward nearly 13 years later when Daft Punk breaks up. Meanwhile, this throwaway video I had made on a whim had gotten a couple million views and over 1,000 comments. And one of the most recent comments said, "In remembrance of Daft Punk's 28 years of music, I want to let y'all know this is my favorite unofficial music video of theirs." And I thought, maybe it'd be nice to do like a follow-up video. But instead of doing another video where I sync up audio and video from different sources, why don't I show how I made the video? That way, if someone has an idea of some clever combination, they can make it themselves. So step one, figure out the timing of the two songs. For the Charleston, I couldn't actually find an obvious beat just from looking at the waveform. So instead, I used the video to calculate how long the audio would be. So I picked out a portion of the video where it would be easy to figure out the beat, and I took 4 measures from that, and that turned out to be, this many samples. And then I did the same thing with Daft Punk, except, I could just look at the waveform because, every time there was a kick, it was very obvious in the waveform, like when that happened. So again, I picked out 4 measures and I noted down how many samples that is. So that's step 1. Step 2, make the timings match. So for the same amount of song, in our case 4 measures, the Charleston is a little bit longer than Around the World. So I figured out how much I'd have to change the speed in order to get the same amount of Around the World to match the same amount of Charleston. And it ended up being these amounts. So step 3, now that I had Around the World matching the speed of the Charleston video, I had to line them up. In the video description, I actually noted that I had used the 9th measure of both the Charleston and Daft Punk to line up the two. The beginning of the 9th measure is when the second guy comes out and does his first kick. So I got the frame number of when that kick is fully extended. I calculated what its corresponding audio sample would be. Then I got the audio sample of the start of the 9th measure of Around the World. Then I got the difference between the two, and I inserted that amount at the beginning of Daft Punk. Now all I had to do was combine the video and audio, and voila. But not quite. You'll notice that Around the World sounds really slow, right? And that makes sense because I just did a straight pitch shift. There's methods of audio stretching that kind of preserve the pitch. It just changes the amount of time that the audio takes up. I didn't want to mess with any of that. I basically just sped everything up after I slowed down Daft Punk. In my video, I had mentioned I did an assume FPS to a faster speed, but I didn't mention, how much I sped it up by. By the way, I just find it so funny that my past self mentioned this assume FPS as if people knew what I was talking about. Assume FPS is a function in AVI Synth or AV-Synth. What I did this time around was find out exactly how much I sped it up by, and it turned out to be about 2 frames per second faster. So from 29.97 frames per second to about 32 frames per second. I had to futz around with AV-Synth a little bit, and I managed to get pretty darn close to what I had made nearly 13 years ago. So that's how I made the Charleston style proper sync video. I hope that was interesting. Maybe. If you have any questions, leave a comment. Try to get back to you. Maybe I'll see you in another 13 years with something else. I don't know. All right. See you guys.